You're invited to imagine what's next. What the next view you wake up to will be. Where your next adventures will start from. Your perfect space to entertain. And your sanctuary to unwind in. As you begin to imagine your new place, we'll be here to help you find it. Because nothing compares to what's next. Sotheby'sRealty.com.
India's IT capital Bengaluru is again making headlines. This time not for its traffic congestion, but for its water shortage, even with peak summers being 2 months away. Now the question we are asking today, how do we make Bengaluru water resilient? This rapidly growing shining capital of Karnataka contributes to 70% of the state's tax earnings, and its citizens deserve water security at the very least. Experts joining me, Dr. Ram Manohar Prasath V, Chairman of the Bangalore Water Supply and Sewerage Board, Professor Praveen C Ramamurthy, Chairman of ICWaR and IISc Bangalore, and Anand Sankar, writer specializing in hydrology and rivers. Now, before we get into the discussion, here are the bare facts. Bengaluru currently faces a substantial shortfall of water, 1,680 megalitres per day to be precise. Of the city's 10,955 borewells, 1,214, which is about 12%, have dried up completely. An additional 3,700 are experiencing significant reductions in water levels. Now, 20% or so Bangaloreans rely on private tanker operators for drinking water. The city, once abundant with lakes, has lost 65 of them since 1965 to unplanned urbanization. And look at how the weather is changing in this temperate city. Earlier, you did not need any air conditioning all year around. Now, Bangalore is forced to cool its buildings because the city's temperatures have increased by 1.5 degrees Celsius in the last 2 decades. Let's first speak with Dr. Ram Manohar Prasath V, Chairman of the Bangalore Water Supply and Sewerage Board, get his perspective on how is this key authority in charge of providing potable water handling the situation. Now, reports indicate that residents in water-scarce areas are paying double the usual cost for water tankers to fulfill their daily needs. So, thank you very much for speaking to NDTV. Let me start with asking you, what are the areas which are feeling the most acute shortage of water in Bengaluru?
In Bengaluru, the areas in the periphery, that is 110 villages, which is recently annexed to the BVMP, which is not having the Kaveri supply system, that is getting water shortage actually, because they are mostly depending on the borewell water. That is why there is a shortage in the water supply. Geographically, the eastern part of the Bengaluru, which is having less groundwater level, as well as there is no Kaveri network in the 110 villages, that areas are the most affected during this kind of issues. Other than that, we have issues in northern part of Bengaluru, which is also again having less groundwater storage, and the Kaveri distribution network is yet to be developed fully.
You know, we are away from peak summers, but they're going to happen in 2 months. Where else are you expecting water shortage to arise in the city?
As of now, we are having 1,450 MLD of capacity of our Kaveri water supply, and 600 MLD of groundwater borewells capacity. So right now there is a deficit in the borewell capacity, about 100 to 150 MLD. And we are trying to augment the supply by putting more use of reusable water and reducing the wastage of water, and augmenting the supply by redrilling the existing borewells. These are the steps we are taking. Even if rain doesn't come, I don't think so further shortage will not come in other areas, because the other areas are having extensive Kaveri network, and the Kaveri reservoir, both KRS and Kabini, we have already reserved the sufficient water for the drinking water purpose of Bengaluru city. So I don't see any issues of shortage in the main part of Bengaluru during summer.
What are BSSW's plans to ensure that all Bangaloreans, including the peripheral areas, do not face water shortage?
Basically, right now the project which I am talking about is a Kaveri Stage 5 project. Already about 5,500 crore have been invested for bringing 775 MLD for this rapidly growing Bengaluru water supply. And secondly, we also spent about 2,500 crores for the UGD network development and STP treatment plant in the 110 villages. Order to this, we are now in the current financial and upcoming financial years. We are planning to install certain reuse technology so that the treated water can be used for recharging this ground aquifer. So we are on track of it. Still, we need a lot of innovative financing methodology to finance infrastructure of Bengaluru city.
Thus, the chairman of BWSS fairly confident that Bengaluru will not face any water shortage during peak summer with the work that the government is undertaking. Anand, you've been very vocal about the potable water issue the city of Bengaluru faces, and your deep insights on Twitter actually have become viral or gone viral. What is your sense in terms of the city's water needs? You know, it's not just one single failed monsoon that we're talking about, but overall, what are the biggest challenges?
That BWSSB only supplies 55% of the total water demand in Bangalore. The other 45% is being met by groundwater. Like even when I had written about it last week, I had taken a very conservative estimate that groundwater is 33%, while there are more later studies that have been conducted now which are saying it is about 45%. So it is a very grave scenario. But the one good thing is that this 55% that the BWSSB supplies, this is protected by various Supreme Court judgments and observations regarding sharing of Kaveri water supply. So even in a low monsoon year, it is more or less protected. And there is some give and take and slack that can happen by diverting some irrigation water for drinking water purposes. So that 55% is not under threat. But what is happening right now, whenever there is a failed monsoon, is that this 45% that is coming from groundwater is coming under severe pressure. Now, this is a major problem for a big metropolitan city like Bangalore. You cannot have insecurity over 45% of your water supply. You can get away with 10%, up to 20%, you can get away with insecurity, but 45% is unheard of. So it is a big supply side nightmare. The BWSSB actually, as far as its mandate goes, it is just to supply water to Bangalore based on when the government identifies a supply, which is the Kaveri, and they have extracted as much water as possible to the maximum potential. So they have done their job. It's that the city has grown beyond the demand, and this has created a major crisis. And see, every time I have seen this happening, that when there is a failed monsoon, we have this chatter about it, and once there is a couple of surplus monsoons, people tend to forget about it.
Correct.
Right? Including the decision makers, citizens, everybody. But now what is happening, what I wanted to point out was this demand supply gap has grown to such an extent that every failed monsoon is going to become crippling. Earlier it was trouble. Now it is going to cripple. So that is the danger that we are facing right now in Bangalore.
Professor Ramamurthy, would you agree that, the dependence on groundwater, which then means that you have to have good monsoons, all that groundwater has to get replenished, it has to also be extracted very, very carefully. Look at the kind of construction which is happening in Bengaluru. Is there an answer to it? I mean, rainwater harvesting, we do say is mandatory, but I don't know how much it's happening in Bengaluru. Give us sense of what your own studies are saying. I mean, what happens in the case that the monsoons don't really pan out the way we expect them to, and that's likely more and more with climate change?
I completely agree with you, and also what Anand was talking about, that we are not able to cope up with the increase or the expansion of the city, because there is only finite quantity of water that is available. So on top of that 45% Anand was talking about, to an extent that can be handled, as I said, if you can start looking at how do you manage. Even though, for example, there is very small, short loss of water, whether it is, as I said, fresh or used, if we can curb that, if we can monitor that, where what is going, then that actually is going to will help fill this gap. There are enough technologies available, there is enough science, engineering, all of those available. How do you implement this? How do you make it come within the community? I think these are the things that will help to an extent, but to think we will manage with just the groundwater and Kaveri on one side and then increasing city size and the requirement, I think is a very, very big challenge.
Okay, Anand, give me your view on, do you feel that the government's lacking concrete plans to address the impending water crisis, or do you think that we need to stop the city from growing? I mean, it all seems like, okay, we do have water, but we don't have water enough to meet the growth of the city, right? So what is the answer?
See, I would like to add something to what Professor said about the rainfall. I mean, this is something that people have been talking about, that Bangalore gets a lot of rain. See, I want to split this. See, people think rainwater harvesting means it is just putting it on your terrace and, channeling into your borewell or your well and stuff. I would like to split it into two distinct categories. One is rainwater harvesting at a household or an apartment society level, and another one is at a landscape level. With citizen participation, the harvesting at individual home or apartment level is easily doable. But what is happening at the landscape level? Now, that is a policy failure. That the people who are making the decisions for Bangalore, both the city and the state level, they have dropped the ball when it comes to managing rainwater at the landscape level. And household level can only recharge a little bit. There is more water that is going to go waste through the landscape, and that is a problem nobody wants to bear, because the entire watershed is getting it has already been encroached. I mean, you're talking about demolitions now if you want to restore the watershed, and we all know that is not going to happen. So that is a big a problem with Bangalore right now, that you're getting a lot of water through rain, but you can only probably tap about 10 or 15% at local levels, but 80% has to be done at the landscape level. And how is that going to be done?
But are we saying, Anand, that means that there is no solution at all? There has to be a solution. You're saying that if it's already encroached, for example, lakes, we've lost so many lakes in that city. So these are the recharging zones with rainwater harvesting. They're just getting sewerage coming into them rather than rainwater coming into them. There has to be a solution, right? So what do you think the government should do? If you have the science, if you have the tools, how do you use technology to make it happen?
See, only reliable solution is an inter-basin transfer of water. Like Kaveri is tapped out, right? So you got to look at another river basin that can supply water to Bangalore. So you need an equal inter-basin transfer. And the problem is there are no other basins near Bangalore to do that kind of a transfer. The Tungabhadra and the Krishna are very far away. The only hope is that currently there are some Western Ghats rivers which they are thinking of transferring some water from that to Bangalore.
All right, when we return, we'll broaden the discussion to ask what are the lessons to be learned for all of mega cities of India from Bangalore and even global cities. I mean, water is now a global issue going forward with rising global heat. Stay with us.
You're invited to imagine what's next. What the next view you wake up to will be. Where your next adventures will start from. Your perfect space to entertain. And your sanctuary to unwind in. As you begin to imagine your new place, we'll be here to help you find it. Because nothing compares to what's next. Sotheby'sRealty.com.
We are keeping Bengaluru's water shortages at the center to ask a larger question. Are India's mega cities prepared for a hotter summer and rising global temperatures? Professor Praveen C Ramamurthy, Chairman of ICWaR, IISc Bangalore, and Anand Sankar, writer specializing in hydrology and rivers, are with me. Professor Ramamurthy, both Niti Aayog and National Institute of Disaster Management have flagged off these concerns for India's cities. You've also done a solid research. Give me 3 big takeaways that we should be, or let's say all city authorities should be doing today.
Well, that's actually a very loaded question in the sense. So there are many things that are need to be looked at. What Anand was talking about, the pumping station, which is amazing, was done long time ago when Mysore Maharaja was taking care of things. So look at the design and the forethought that I went into designing that Bangalore require such water and things. So there was a lot of planning that happened. So I think that is required. If one water resource department cannot be an isolated organization, involving with everybody. I mean, the buzzword is interdisciplinary, right? So you involve everybody else to understand, tackle these things. So just one more example I want to give before we go further. If you look at a decade ago, when there was a challenge with power, right? The power grid was not stable, and then you couldn't, if you produce power in your home, whatever means, you couldn't feed it to the grid because the grid was not uniform. So that was all taken care. Now you made one India, one grid, and also you gave the consumer the capability to look at how much power is generated, how much he is using, and then what quality and things like that. Actually, that helped quite a lot. I keep talking about community engagement and things like that. So probably similarly here, IoT based, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of those things can be used to engage everybody involved so that everybody's heads are put together and then you can come up with a solution.
So what you're saying is if we can solve for the power problem with having a national grid and using technology to ensure that every home has some power, why can't we solve for water? Anand, your views? Because honestly, I mean, water shortage is crippling. It has a direct and immediate impact on everyone's life and a very, very large economic impact on any city. And Bengaluru is the shining, jewel in Karnataka's crown.
The thing with Bangalore is that they've actually been quite okay with forecasting plant demand. What they have not been able to factor in is unplanned growth of the the city. So they it has just kind of the sprawl just went out of control. So that has created the problem for Bangalore, what they're facing right now. See, you need to come together. First thing is, as the professor is saying, is that somewhere we need to do some citizen engagement and at least tap that 20% that can be tapped from rainwater at household or individual building level.
And also so the losses, the pipe water losses are so big, which can be stopped immediately. I think none of us have discussed it, but theft and loss of water with water metering is not that hard to fix.
Yeah, no, I have been very skeptical about this leakage number. I mean, we've been when I was even covering BWSSB back in the day and stuff, this number has more or less stayed constant at some 40%. How is it possible that from 20 years this number is always 40%? Have they not done anything to curb the leakage? No, it is theft. theft is labeled as leakage and it is passed along. So that is a bigger problem. Because I keep telling people that the volume of water is massive. If you're going to take 40% of water is going to go to leakage, the volume is massive. Nobody can miss it.
Correct.
So in that sense, that people have to pressure the authority to get serious with water theft. That everybody who gets access to pipe
I'm hearing
water
you, Anand.
pay the-
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we've run out of time.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting from both of you is that, okay, city authorities have a large responsibility of making us city water resilient. But when it comes to resources precious as water, citizens have to come together. Technology has to come together. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me. And
Thank you,
I'm
thank
going to end by telling everyone who's watching the show that it's each one of us who are responsible, that we don't waste even a drop of water, be mindful of how we use it in our homes and offices. I mean, it is a very, very life precious resource. Goodbye and thanks so much for watching.
You're invited to imagine what's next. What the next view you wake up to will be. Where your next adventures will start from. Your perfect space to entertain. And your sanctuary to unwind in. As you begin to imagine your new place, we'll be here to help you find it. Because nothing compares to what's next. Sotheby'sRealty.com